evening, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves, just outside Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm gonna throw it to my man, co-host, good friend, John Webster in Maryland. How you doing, John?
Hey, Gary, I'm doing great, man. How are you? Did you have a good Labor Day weekend?
Yes, I did. It was busy, but it was good because it was the start of football, and that's always a good day.
Hey, man, there was a lot of good football out there, man. A lot of good football, man. And nothing better than Labor Day and watching Notre Dame play or watching Clemson and Georgia play. Watched a little bit of Mississippi against Louisville last night. Man, it was great, man. I enjoyed it, man. Man, but again, man, we got to say hi to our producer, the main man, John Pitt. How you doing?
Just like y'all, football is back. I'm excited. Now, I noticed you got a different background. Can you explain this jersey behind you with all these signatures on
it? Sure, John. I'll take a couple of minutes. I used to coach in a basketball league, a church basketball league, and the kids on the team and some of the parents put together to get a jersey with my name and number on it, and all of them signed it, and they put it in this nice case for me. And my wife, Kim, has set up my man cave, so she has it up on the wall in here.
If it's the same league that I remember helping out, before I moved out this way, John, I would say that jersey is well-deserved.
Yeah.
A lot of work over a lot of years for that.
Well, I appreciate it, Gary, but wouldn't be possible without people like you helped out with the league and the kids that played in the league and the parents that made sure their kids got there. So everybody played a role in making sure that we were successful.
All right. Well, hey, did they frame it for you too?
Oh yeah, they put it all together. You know, Kim's not going to leave me to do anything like that. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, it was well deserved, my friend. Well deserved.
Thanks, Gary.
And I'm glad you put it up there in a place where it can be seen. I guess you have frames for your Notre Dame jerseys.
Yes, we have Notre Dame jerseys, and we'll be putting them in frames. We can do that. One day in the man cave, I'll be able to turn the camera in a different direction against the other wall where it says "Man Cave Fighting Irish Banner." It's quite a collection of Notre Dame stuff that we have in here. The Golden Domers, the greatest athletic and academic institution this country has ever seen, Gary.
Outside of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, of course.
Well, we're saying academic and athletic, okay, Gary? So I'm sorry.
Oh, boy. That's what you pull out when you almost lose Florida State.
That was pretty bad, man. 18-point lead. They let it all go away. The guy they brought in as a defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, came from Cincinnati. Great defensive coordinator, but they got conservative on defense and offense. Another thing that happened in the game, the starting quarterback, I think Travis Jordan, lost his helmet. Helmet came off, so he had to come out of the game, and he brought the kid Milton in the game. I don't know if you remember Milton.
Oh,
I remember. Years back, he played at Central Florida. Yeah, and
that story this side of Alex Smith.
Yeah, and he really did a number on his leg. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, they were considering amputating his leg as well. And he came in the game, Gary, and he was slinging that ball, and he brought him back, man. I mean, if I'm not sitting there being a Notre Dame fan, I'll be honest with you, I'm pulling for him, but I'm Notre Dame, man. But he almost pulled it out. They missed a field goal in overtime. Notre Dame made theirs, and the game is over. But Notre Dame has to play a whole lot better if they are to try to contend. Today's rankings came out. They are 8th. They have some games left against, I think, Virginia Tech. They also have Cincinnati on the schedule. And Cincinnati's going to fool a lot of people this year, Gary. They're going to be tough. Mm-hmm. And if they get to be undefeated when they play Notre Dame, that's going to be quite a battle. And maybe, Gary, maybe, I don't want to say it loud, you may finally get a team in the college football playoffs that's not in the Power Five. What do you think?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, John. And the thing about the Bearcats, having seen them for a number of years in the old AAC and with Louisville, Big East with Louisville for a little bit. Nothing about that program surprises me. And since you mentioned college football, I guess we can just talk about a lot of these games over the weekend. Alabama did what Alabama does. Georgia, and I told you Georgia was probably going to win that game because Clemson's going to be okay, but see, when you lose all that talent on both sides of the ball, it's hard to make that up in a game of that significance right off the bat. I mean, I think Clemson, when it comes to the ACC, will still be the team to beat, but now their margin for error is very, very short. I think they got a little bit of a break with North Carolina, losing to Virginia Tech. That in that other division, that's not who you have to worry about now. And for that matter, you might have to think about some other schools, maybe like Virginia Tech, for that matter. But
one thing, Gary,
there weren't a whole lot of surprises.
Yeah, you're right. But one thing I want to go back to, you said Clemson has a very slim margin for error. I don't think they have any margin. And the reason I say that is the ACC. Right now, I never thought I would be saying this, Gary. After 1 week, Clemson needs help. They need help from other teams because North Carolina lost. They were a top 10 team. So that takes down, if Clemson beats them, that takes down the points that's worth for them winning the game. Virginia Tech, okay, we'll see what Virginia Tech does. Last night, Mississippi ran roughshod over Louisville. So that takes the ACC down again. It was some other schools in the ACC played this weekend and lost. I think Clemson needs help. The top 4 teams right now, according to the AP, and you haven't started the bowl calculations and all that yet, but the top 4 teams are Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and who's the 4th team? I can't think of the 4th team now. It's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and one other team. I can't even think of who the 4th team is, Gary. But
yeah, hold on.
I know Clemson is 6th, and Clemson is going to need help. And
let's see, Oklahoma, was that maybe?
Oklahoma, there it is. That's who it is, Oklahoma. And I don't see how Oklahoma is in the top 4. They struggle with Tulane. It was 40-35. They really struggle with Tulane. I don't see it. I'm going to tell you something. Another team you need to watch out for. We've talked about it before. Coming out of the SEC. It's Texas A&M. They're, don't sleep on them. They can do some damage, and Jimbo Fisher's going to have them ready to play. So, like I said, there's a lot going to happen, but Clemson needs help. And I don't think they're going to be able to get enough help to get in there. I really don't. The surprising thing with me the other night, their defense looked good. That was a great defensive game. Georgia is unbelievably fast on defense. Oh, man, they can play some defense. And if everything goes as planned, if Georgia and Alabama meet each other in the SEC championship, oh, man, that's going to be some football being played that day. But the one thing I'll say about Clemson, they never, and I'm not a football player, Gary, that's your sport, so you tell me if I'm wrong. Clemson never switched the tempo. The kid, their quarterback, he never had any time. So why don't you go no huddle and try to get Georgia off your back? Georgia had 7 sacks on that kid. Now, that kid, you give him time to throw. We saw last year against Notre Dame. He had 400-plus yards throwing. He can get the job done, but you got to give him some time. I mean, every time he dropped back 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps, there was 3 or 4 Bulldogs right there waiting on him. He just didn't have any time. So, I just thought, again, that's your game, man. What I saw is maybe going no huddle to switch that tempo a little bit, but they never did that.
Yeah, I was just looking at one of the stories from that game. Yeah, I mean everything you said is correct. It's yeah, they just never really adjusted, and I think a lot of that has to do, John, with you can only do what you can with the personnel you have in that situation,
Mhm.
and we talk a lot about um, it's more about how you're playing later in the season when the rankings come out, but again, with such a small margin for error, you have to really you have to make a good impression right away. What's that saying? You only get you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, and that's the thing that Clemson now is facing. I mean, it's almost every game is a must win if they hope to have a chance at the playoff.
And the last thing I want to ask you about, Gary, and maybe you can explain it to me, and maybe I'm just too old school. If you're down by 27, you're losing 27 to nothing. Why are you celebrating after you get a turnover and giving the turnover chain away? I don't understand that.
Oh, John.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, showboating, things like that. Guys like me have to write about things like that because that's what people talk about. I'm all for enthusiasm, but at the same time, there's a time and a place for it. I mean, when you're getting the brakes beat off of you in a game and you're celebrating, you're celebrating something that you should have done to keep it from getting to 27 to nothing. I'm like, really now? And I mean, you see that on a lot of sidelines. And in fact, look at baseball. I mean, how many double digit beatings have you seen this season where guys hit a home run and they're flossing, they're flexing, they're doing the bat flip, they're staring down the pitcher. Again, you're getting pasted 11-1. Okay, fine, you hit a home run. What's the point? I mean, is that really necessary? And it's like I said, it's all about that whole thing. Look at me. That's the culture we're in. That's the culture we've been in a lot of times in sports. And something like that. I'm just like you. I just said, really, and it just gets old.
Gary, they would tell us that we're two grumpy old men.
Be that as it may. I mean, I'm at a point. Hey, I'm not above saying get off my lawn on some things, and that's one of them, John. I mean, again, there just has to be some kind of limit. I don't think that there was anybody watching that just thought, y'all got beat to the middle of next week. Now you want to flex and do all that stuff? No. Stop it. Anyway, moving on. We are in the second week of the fortnight of the U.S. Open. The names that we expected to be there, Naomi Osaka isn't there. She got knocked out in the third round, and she has a bigger issue to ponder with her career. I mean, she floated out the possibility that she might not play tennis for a while. John, I think that that's probably the right decision for her, given how difficult this year has been for her on the court and off the court. And having watched the Netflix documentary series on her, it seems like there's a lot being thrown at her that, as good as she wanted to be as a player right away, that now she's realizing when it comes to media demands, social media feedback, things like that, that it's a lot to bear. And at her age, and really there was a story, I forgot where I read it, but it really made the point that a lot of players, even the successful ones, I mean, even the jokers, in this sport, aren't really enjoying tennis. I mean, it's a pressure-filled sport, and I think we're seeing it particularly with the younger players. And I was trying to think of the young woman who got knocked out of the U.S. Open, Shelby Rogers. She alluded to the fact that when she lost, that she basically expected to have 9 million murder threats, death threats online because there's no place to hide for some of these younger players. It's a sad thing, and you're starting to see it with players such as her and Naomi Osaka and even Sloane Stephens. I mean, who racist threats to the point where Twitter, where they're having to monitor what comes in on her feed. I mean, it's deplorable on a number of levels, to use a political term, but it's sad that it's come to this point, and I don't have a problem with Osaka pointing out some of those pressures, because it's not just about winning games now. It's not about winning matches and tournaments.
Gary, and I think maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago, you and I had this discussion, and one of the things that you and I both said, mental health is important. And you can have an injury from a mental standpoint, just like you can have an injury with a sprained ankle. And it's just as important to heal your mental health as it is a sprained ankle. All of it is important. I also think, you and I joke, like last segment, we talked about, the turnover chain and, 2 grumpy old men. But man, you know what? It's still sports. And it's supposed to be fun. And somewhere along the line, you've had people who have taken the fun out of it for these kids. And again, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call them kids. These young ladies, these young men. It's just gone too far sometimes, Gary. It really has. You sit down and you listen to Naomi Osaka. She's doing her interview the other day. One of the officials from the U.S. Open tried to help and cut the interview off, but she wanted to keep on and get her point across. And I give her a lot of credit. She's a brave young lady, and she's going through a lot. And there are some that don't take mental health seriously. There are some that say, just, go deal with it and keep playing. It's not 1970. It's not 1980. Things evolve and you learn how to do things better. And with mental health, it's very important. And it can keep you from performing as well as you possibly can, just like an ankle injury or an arm injury can, the same way. And it's unfortunate when people don't realize it. It's unfortunate when people minimize it. And what Naomi Osaka is going through, what Sloane Stephens is going through, what Shelby Rogers is going through, is serious and it's real. The constant threats you get on social media, the harassment you receive, totally uncalled for. Yes, go to a game, go to a match. Yes, cheer for who you want to win. Cheer as loud as you can, but still be respectful of the people playing the game and realize these people are human beings and are doing all they can. And if you think it's so easy and you think you can just tear people down, step in between those lines and play tennis. Step on that gridiron and play football. Step on that diamond and play baseball. Step on the hardwood and play basketball. Step in the square circle and box. I'm just naming a few. They're all hard sports. Every sport is hard. Everyone is hard. And for a person to sit on the sideline and chastise, whether it be Tiger Woods or what's the guy named Copa, the golfer, Bryson
Koepka.
Brooks Koepka or Bryson DeChambeau, or you're chastising Aaron Rodgers, or you're chastising Tatis or Max Scherzer in baseball. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be where you cross the line and you disrespect these people. It shouldn't be where you make comments that can hurt. It shouldn't be where you don't understand when somebody says, I really need to step back and get myself together mentally. You should be able to understand, and you should be able to accept and realize, as I said when I first started this diatribe, mental health is just as important as an injury to your arm or to your leg or to your foot. And I'm sorry, Gary, for going on a diatribe about this, but I'm
No, it
just
makes a lot of sense, John. I agree with you. I mean, now, to be fair, I'll say to the public that part of sports is being the armchair quarterback. Being the Monday morning quarterback. Again, that's one of those things that comes with a territory. But to your point, that it's really gotten out of hand. It's become personal. It's become dangerous in a sense. And the thing about it now is that the social media, the verbal part, can be as dangerous as, say, somebody coming out of the stands to stab Monica Seles when she's courtside.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. The climate that we're in now, it spawns that kind of criticism or that kind of vitriol, where now you have to have bodyguards. I don't think that there's any player, any athlete worth their weight that doesn't have some kind of protection, but it's really, really been ratcheted up. And one thing, I really don't want to blame this, but I'll say one of the things I think contributes to it beyond social media is gambling. I mean, let's face it, sports betting, I think it's something that sports needs because it's the one thing that has really driven the popularity of sports the last 30 years or so, whether it was a pool at work or, a private bet. But now you've got a number of states that have legalized sports betting, and there's a lot riding on it. And again, you think about people that might have bet on that Notre Dame FSU game on Sunday night, and thinking, oh yeah, that kid comes in and hits a field goal. Oh, wait a minute, he called timeout. The coach called timeout to review a play, put him a few yards closer, but then the kid misses it left. You think about how much money changed on that, and there's probably sadly, they're taking it out on the poor people on the field, the athletes on the field. It's part of the territory in a sense, but it's still very, very unfair, and it's very, very dangerous.
I agree, Gary. Totally agree.
Well, moving on to baseball. Again, we're getting deeper and deeper into the September pennant races. I guess really the only ones that we're paying attention to right now are the National League West and maybe some of the wild card races, because Tampa Bay, I mean, unless they just don't show up, they've got a pretty good lock on the American League East. I think, the Dodgers and Giants, again, I like to invoke what my father used to talk about with the old pennant races between them. I mean, it's like those are the two teams everybody's going to pay attention to. And no matter who wins the division, there's a chance that they'll probably meet again in a divisional series, or maybe, even a league championship series. The problem with that is the Milwaukee Brewers, they're not fading. They're not fading. They've got pitching, they've got hitting, and, they've got a lot of heart. So say whatever about the Dodgers and Max Scherzer, the Giants, who really they've bent, but they haven't broken. And I still think it's their division to lose, even though, again, that's who that they've got to deal with. And I think, you've carried the torch for the San Diego Padres too. They might not win a wild card spot, but they could affect who wins that division. So you've got to take them seriously as well.
Well, Padres right now have that second wild card spot. They'll be playing Cincinnati if it ended today, but they've really been on a downward spiral. Great weekend of baseball watching the Giants and the Dodgers, just like the old days, Gary. Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants. It was great baseball, great theater.
We've been told, because we were too young to remember those days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were just a gleam, remember?
Absolutely. And, Giants took 2 or 3. You know, I'm rooting for the Giants to get that one. We'll see what happens. You know, don't forget about that National League East, Gary. Atlanta, Philadelphia, and even the Mets. 3 teams within 4 games of each other. Atlanta's in first place right now, but Philadelphia, you know, has a say-so in it. And the Mets just got finished having a weekend series, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with the Nationals. And they took like 3 out of 4, 2 out of 3. Yeah, I know, Gary. I see the bling bling on your hand. I see the Nationals World Series ring, and congratulations to you on what you did in 2019. But right now, my friend, we're talking about 2021. You know, I could reach back with the Orioles and talk about 1966, 1983.
I mean, you know, but before we went on the air, I mean, you went through the entire Notre Dame football history and everything, and John Pitt and I had to sit here and listen to it. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with holding on the glory of the teams that you love. I mean, now if I could find my Washington Bullets pennant from 1978, I might flash that too.
Let me also add this about the Orioles. Let me add this, Gary Graves. Let me also say this. It was the Orioles that put the Nats into a downward spiral and pretty much eliminated them from the playoffs. Let's get that straight. Now, I'll also say this. This past weekend, the Orioles won 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 from the Bronx Bombers to continue their downward spiral. And then the Bronx Bombers turned around, we're talking about the New York Yankees, and lost yesterday to Toronto 8-0 because of the Orioles controlling them and what they did to the Nats and how the Nats are going in a downward spiral. I can see the same thing happening to the Yankees. The Orioles are just that kind of team.
Yeah, well, what's the saying of familiarity breeds contempt? And, you know, when you face a team 18, 19 times during the
oh, my God, it's too many times, Gary. It's way too many times. Playing the Yankees and the Red Sox, it's way too many times.
Yeah, it's and those kind of things happen. You know, you become kind of bored, or you know, you start to take your opponents for granted. In a way that's one of the things about such a long season that you have to appreciate. I would really like to see some scheduling. I'd like to see
changing.
Changes from a standpoint that it used to be, you know, where you would see a team from every division twice. I mean, at home, away twice a year. Of course, now because of travel, teams can't make 2 trips a season to the West Coast or you know, vice versa. That part I get, and of course now even with interleague play, where they try to get as many games in as possible, that part makes sense. But it seems like every weekend I turn on ESPN and it's Red Sox and Yankees. And I just wonder, you know, they play each other so much. I don't even know if that rivalry even matters, because those guys are probably just like, oh, hey, yeah, we're going to be in town again. Where are we going to go eat after the game? I mean, It was like that. Not too long ago, John, I was covering baseball when the Yankees and Red Sox literally fought each other. I mean,
I remember.
And Pedro Martinez and you know, Aaron Bleepin Boone. Now that kind of thing. And remember, you know, Thurman Munson.
They weren't going out to dinner with each other then.
No. I mean, but yeah, it's almost like football. You know, these guys, they're hugging each other at the end of games and praying together at the field. And, you know, you and I can appreciate that part as believers, but it's like the coaches still kind of look at that. It's like, you're supposed to hate these guys in theory. And and that part's just not there. That's what happens when you see each other so much that, you know, short of being married or something. I can't really speak to that, but you know, it used to be where you're tired of seeing each other, but you know, these days they're just used to it, you know.
Gary, on that statement, you're out on the left field by yourself, buddy.
I wanted to see how you would react, because, you know, when I mentioned, you know, all the joys of marriage to you, you break out in a cold sweat.
No, I don't think so. I think I have the love of my life with me, and
right there in the room, right?
Through 34 years of marriage, I can't think of anyone better to me than Kim. So I'm thankful and blessed to have her with me.
Yeah. Well, in terms of back to baseball, we'll talk about that other game off camera. But again, I am going to pay more attention to races now that I want to see how that National League West turns out, because to me that's throwback baseball. Even with all the things I said, you still have to appreciate too of baseball's story teams. And I was thinking about that as I was reading a bio about Tony Kubek, who used to be on the Major League Baseball Game of the Week, and be appreciating what he and Kurt Gowdy used to do in terms of bringing the game into our living rooms. I mean, Tony is still with us at 85. Just thinking about all the things that they used to do and making that game exciting, and especially when it came to rivalries like that. That's what keeps you and I watching these September games when the NFL, just as the NFL is about to get cranked up.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's absolutely positively exciting times, man. And I know the Giants and the Dodgers, and keep this in mind, Gary, they could end up tied and they could end up playing a one-game playoff before we even get to the wild card, which would be even more exciting.
Well, I mean, I've always loved that one-game playoff, win or lose. And I mean, and again, just to go back to, I think about 2 years ago when the Nationals had to win that play-in game against the Brewers, and pulled out a miracle in the bottom of the eighth to win that game, and the rest is history. Again, that's what makes baseball fun. You and I are old enough to remember 1978 when the Yankees made up that 14-game lead on the Red Sox, and then again Bucky bleeping Dent. So hey, that's why we watch.
Absolutely, positively.
Yeah. Well, we head into another NFL season as we wrap up. Thursday night, the Bucks and the Cowboys lead off NFL season. What do you got? Who you got? I know who John Pitt has.
Well, we know Pitt's going to go with the Cowboys. That's fine, and we'll see what happens. I'll take Tampa Bay to open the season 1-0.
Yeah, I'm that way too, and that's no slap at the Cowboys. It's just the Bucks will raise that flag. They'll hoist Jolly Roger. And, I mean, they've already gotten their rings. I mean, now this is a time for fans to celebrate. And it's hard for teams not to respond to that. I mean, you'd almost have to be, completely flat.
It'll be a rough atmosphere for the Cowboys to pull a win out. I mean, I think the Cowboys are going to have a good season this year. I just don't think they'll beat Tampa Bay Thursday night.
No. Yeah. But again, that's why they play the games, and that's why we're talking about them.
Absolutely.
So along that line, folks, we're going to be talking again next week about sports, see what happens after this first NFL weekend, what happens in college football. Again, I'll say, if you're betting some of these games in college, please take the under on some of them, because it still is week 2, unless it's Alabama.
Hey, I had a great time as always, Gary. I enjoyed the show with you. Hey, everybody, be careful out there. Have a great week. Watch some sports, and we're going to come back and see you again next week. John Pitt, you take care as well. Go Cowboys for you, buddy.